At PNC Private Bank, we want to know what drives you. We call that your why. Once we understand it, we'll build a personalized wealth plan to help you achieve it. So tell us, what's your why? Copyright 2021, the PNC Financial Services Group, Inc., all rights reserved, PNC Bank, National Association, member FDIC.
Democrats remain at an impasse over two separate spending bills. We'll have the latest from Washington. And homeowners in flood zones could soon be paying a lot more for insurance.
And then you look at variables including, the distance your home is from a particular body of water, the height of the first floor, the replacement cost to rebuild a house should it be significantly damaged. So they just pulled in a lot more variables to be able to kind of more precisely gauge the risk of your particular property.
Plus, why one movie theater is testing all you can eat. It's Friday, October 1st. I'm Anne-Marie Fertoli for The Wall Street Journal. This is the PM edition of What's News, the top headlines and business stories that moved the world today. President Biden met with Democrats on Capitol Hill this afternoon, where party leaders are trying to forge an agreement between the moderate and progressive wings on two spending packages. Our politics reporter Eliza Collins has more.
Democrats are basically fighting over what order to pass the Biden agenda. The centrist lawmakers in the House say that they want to pass a $1 trillion bipartisan infrastructure package that has already passed the Senate. They want to pass that first and then move on to a larger social and climate package, currently estimated at $3.5 trillion, but likely to go down. The progressives in the House say they want to pass both at the same time. They basically don't trust a couple of centrist senators on their word that they will move on to the larger package if they pass the infrastructure package first. So they all sort of agree on what they want to pass. It's just the order, really, and then how much money that larger social package is going to cost.
In a big step towards treatment for COVID-19, an experimental antiviral pill, which could be taken at home, has been shown in trials to cut the risk of hospitalization or death by 50% in mild to moderate cases. Drug developers Merck and Ridgeback Biotherapeutics released their late-stage trial results today. The hope is that the drug could become like Tamiflu, the prescription at-home flu medication, and could be given to patients when they first develop symptoms to prevent more serious illness. Merck's CEO says the company plans to seek federal authorization for the drug in the coming weeks. Meanwhile, California is going to require all eligible students to get vaccinated against COVID-19 after the Food and Drug Administration grants full approval for kids 12 and older. Governor Gavin Newsom announced the statewide mandate, the first of its kind in the U.S., earlier today. He said it would take effect in the next academic term after FDA approval. Consumer spending rose 0.8% in August, and personal income was up too, thanks to wage gains and federal distribution of child tax credits, according to the Commerce Department. Economists say the pickup in spending is a sign that the recovery is gaining steam after the Delta variant brought on a summer slowdown. Americans' view of the economy also improved slightly in September, according to a survey released today by the University of Michigan. And the price of lumber has been on a roller coaster ride. After soaring this past spring, prices dipped in the summer, but may be heading toward a late season rally. Futures are up almost 40% since late August, over $625 per 1,000 board feet. For reference, futures averaged at around $357 between 2015 and 2019. Analysts and industry executives say price surges for raw materials are lingering, but that they don't expect them to hit the spring levels when futures soared above $1,700. Coming up, why flood insurance rates could be going up for some property owners.
What's important to you? What drives you? What do you want your wealth to do? At PNC Private Bank, we call that your why, and we want to understand yours. Maybe it's creating a legacy, buying a home, or enjoying your retirement. Whatever your goals are, we'll work with you to build a personalized wealth plan to help you achieve it. So tell us, what's your why? To learn more, please visit pnc.com/privatebank. Copyright 2021, the PNC Financial Services Group, Inc., all rights reserved, PNC Bank, National Association, member FDIC.
Hurricane Ida, which hit Louisiana in August, is expected to be among the most expensive storms in U.S. history. A recent estimate by Risk Management Solutions anticipated the cost for insured damages could be between $31 and $44 billion. Some of that cost came from the destructive winds. Some of it was related to business interruptions, but a lot of it was due to flood damage. Today, the cost of insuring against such damages got a lot more expensive for some homeowners. The National Flood Insurance Program says it's changed its pricing system to more accurately reflect the flood risk of individual properties. For more on the changes to the program and what it means for policyholders, I'm joined now by Wall Street Journal reporter Ariane Campo-Flores in Miami. Hi, Ariane. Thanks for being here.
Sure thing. My pleasure.
So, Ariane, before we get to the changes here, can you tell us a little bit more about what prompted the National Flood Insurance Program to do this rate reassessment and create this new system?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the existing system had been in place for decades, and it had just gotten kind of old and outdated. It was based on very kind of rudimentary variables. And so people's flood insurance, you could have, homes with very different kind of risk profiles that would be paying the exact same rate. And there was a concern that it was creating inequities in the system and that you had, in many cases, lower value homes that were ending up subsidizing higher value homes. And so they undertook this significant overhaul of the system to have the rates be tailored to an individual property and to that property's actual flood risk.
Tell us a little bit more about how the new pricing system works and attempts to do that to more accurately account for flood risk. Does it expand the scope of the previous program?
Yeah, it does. So it takes into account a lot of additional variables. So the previous one would just look at, where you were in a flood map, in a flood zone. The new system first pulls in a lot of data that they've gathered, that the National Flood Insurance Program got from partners that it worked with. And then you look at variables including, the distance your home is from a particular body of water, the height of the first floor, the replacement cost to rebuild a house should it be significantly damaged. So they just pulled in a lot more variables to be able to kind of more precisely gauge the risk of your particular property.
In the past couple of years and the past couple of months even, we've seen the impact of stronger storms and learned about new areas that are now considered at greater flood risk. Can you give us a sense of how much of the country is impacted here by this new system?
People have flood policies across the country. But yeah, the most significantly impacted areas are going to be these coastal areas. So along the Gulf Coast, Texas all the way down to Florida, and then up the eastern seaboard. And those areas are getting impacted more. And it's places up in the Northeast that didn't really need to think about this as much are having to think about it now. We saw that with the remnants of Hurricane Ida that moved across that region recently.
Now, there are some homeowners who are now facing much higher premiums because of the new pricing system. Can you tell us what you heard from some of them?
According to FEMA, this is a minority of the cases because according to them in an analysis that they did, the increases should be minor for many, many people. Some people will actually see decreases, but there is a portion of people that are going to be seeing really significant increases. So as an example, I spoke to one gentleman in St. Petersburg, Florida, named Chris Daly, who's building a new home and recently got quoted a new policy premium. This home, he's building it 7 feet above the base flood elevation, which is the level at which water is expected to rise in a 100-year flood. And still, his annual premium is going to jump enormously from $441 currently to eventually close to $5,000. Over time, that is eventually going to become a very hefty premium, more than 10 times what he's paying now.
How is this likely to impact where people are choosing to live if they're having to now consider higher premiums? Obviously, the prospect of paying more money could be a deterrent to some would-be homeowners, especially in coastal communities. People
that I spoke to who analyze, insurance and real estate markets think that it could have an impact. Because obviously, if you're moving into an area where the flood insurance until now may have, accounted for a relatively small percentage of what your monthly payments are. And now that balloons to like a much higher figure, that's going to rule out certain areas for people, who are middle income or even lower income. And so I think that's really where people are expecting more of an impact is in that middle income range. For wealthy people who want to live on the waterfront and have their boat and live that lifestyle, they're going to be able to absorb higher premiums, even if they're significantly higher. It's a different thing for people who need to secure a mortgage and have a certain cap that they can't go beyond. For them, living in really vulnerable, low-lying areas may be much harder to pull off.
And what about on the other side of that for municipalities, especially some waterfront communities that are trying to attract people to come and live there? What kind of considerations are they having to make now?
Yeah, I mean, that makes it tougher. Again, I think for wealthy people on waterfront properties, that market is likely to continue to thrive and have a lot of demand. But, I spoke to one custom home builder named Matt Carr, who's also in the St. Petersburg area, who said that, he recently backed out of a property purchase because of these new flood insurance changes and his concern that would be a more difficult property to sell. And so in the areas that are vulnerable to flooding but aren't necessarily like right on the water, those properties may become less attractive. And so cities that are counting on that development and that home buying to fuel their local economies are going to have to grapple with that. There is some push among lawmakers and advocates that there should be subsidies that are given directly to folks who are not in the highest income brackets, who are more middle income or lower income, who are going to get hit by this. Monies that could be dedicated to them to help soften the blow.
That's Wall Street Journal reporter Ariane Campo-Flores. Ariane, thank you so much for joining me today.
Sure thing. My pleasure.
And finally, movie theaters were one of the first businesses to close their doors at the beginning of the pandemic and have been among the last to reopen. But getting customers back hasn't been easy. Theaters are competing with streaming services, which have become more popular and have even started posting new releases at the same time as they hit the big screen. So what's a movie theater owner to do? John Goldstein, owner of 15 movie theaters in several states, put a new spin on dinner and a movie at his location in Woodhaven, Michigan. Here's our reporter, Ruth Simon.
John came up with this really novel pricing experiment for $25 on weekend evenings and other peak times and $20 during the week. Adults received a movie ticket, and then they would get a wristband, and that entitled them to unlimited popcorn, pizza, chicken tenders, and other special menu items. What he learned is it's hard. Experimenting is hard, particularly if you're a small business owner. And there were a couple of different issues. We talked to one person who came to the movies and just loved it, but some people just didn't want that all-inclusive thing. They wanted just their popcorn or they wanted their soda. He found movie habits were hard to change.
And that's what's news for this week. Our hosts are me, Anne-Marie Fertoli, and Peter Granitz. The show was produced by Trinae Nori and Kate Bullivant, with help from Anthony Bancy, Julie Chang, Zoe Thomas, Charlie Turner, and J.R. Whalen, and with editorial support from Paolo Bossanen, Jenny Ang, Kateri Yoakum, Sandra Kilhoff, and Chris Sinsley. If you like what you hear, please rate and review us. We'll be back on Monday morning. I'm Anne-Marie Fertoli for The Wall Street Journal. Thanks so much for listening.